Hear a loud good morning? That's like it, sir has already set in all the energy in the crowd. I am Naina Gray, your host for the day, and I take immense pleasure in welcoming each one of you to the first ever Philip Kotler Marketing Forum PKMF in Bengaluru, presented by Philip Kotler Center for Advanced Marketing. This year, the Philip Kotler Marketing Forum has so far been held in Tokyo, Yangon, Myanmar, Moscow, Colombia, Ecuador and Italy before coming to Bengaluru. Before we begin the session, may I please request all of you to keep your phones on silent or switched off mode. You are also requested not to click any pictures or not to make any videos of the session, please. It will all be uploaded on the website. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to appreciate our esteemed partners for their association with PKMF Bengaluru 2014. Salar Purya Sattva Group, Realty and Infrastructure Partner, ITC Hotels, Hospitality Partner, Jaguar Land Rover, Luxury Partner, Gift XOXO, Gifting Partner, Sam Miller, Drinking Water Partner, Ola Cabs, Travel Partner, ET Now, Media Partner. Supporting partners are Red Bull Academy of Indian Marketing, TIE Bangalore, Rural Marketing Association of India. Philip Kotler Center for Advanced Marketing, popularly known as PCAM, is an initiative to establish knowledge networks and partnerships within the industry and education sector for disseminating the best knowledge and practices of marketing for both the private and the public sectors. PCAM envisages to inculcate marketing knowledge and expertise through collaborations with leading academic institutions and the industry. Among the main objectives of PCAM include the design, development and delivery of education and training programs in the strategic marketing for senior leaders in the corporate, public and non-governmental sectors, including video simulation and other innovative platforms, and to conduct research in the area of applied marketing. The principal theme of Philip Kotler Marketing Forum Bengaluru 2014 is Re-Energize Marketing. The topics for today's session include Innovation Through Marketing by the man himself, the father of modern marketing, Dr. Philip Kotler. Future of Marketing by Professor Abraham Koshi. Online Marketing by Mr. Klaus Salminen. Inspiring the Future Minds by Dr. Kotler, Professor Koshi and Dr. Mithileshwar Jha. Also addressing the forum will be Mr. Vinod Sahani, CEO of Reliance Communications. May I now have the opportunity to introduce you to the Director of PCAM, Bengaluru, Professor Priyanka PD. Priyanka is a researcher and professor in the area of marketing management, and currently she is teaching marketing and general management at Jyoti Nivas College Postgraduate Center. Previously, she has been the director of C.N.K. Reddy College of Management. She has taught marketing management at Symbiosis Institute of Media and Communication, M.P. Birla Institute of Management, and has presented papers at top management institutes across the globe such as Harvard University, IIM Bangalore, IIM Kolkata, ISB Hyderabad and IIT Delhi. She is an editorial advisory board review member for the International Journal of Social Sciences, which is managed by the Harvard University. Can we please have Professor Priyanka up on stage? Huge round of applause for the lady, please. Ma'am, please.
Very good morning to one and all present here today. I would like to introduce myself as Professor Priyanka, Director of Philip Kotler Center for Advanced Marketing. And Philip Kotler Center for Advanced Marketing presents for the first time Philip Kotler Marketing Forum 2014 in Bangalore. Professor Philip Kotler, one of the world's most intellectuals and world's leading authority in the discipline of requires no introduction. Philip Kotler Marketing Forum, Bangalore 2014 is brought to you by Philip Kotler Center for Advanced Marketing, an initiative to establish knowledge partnership network in collaboration with local universities and impart training in marketing management and strategic management through video and live sessions with a strong research focus. It gives me great honor to introduce Professor Philip Kotler to this forum. My journey with Professor Philip Kotler started during my MBA days. As an academician and a marketing professor, my classes are incomplete without you, Kotler sir, and I always endeavor to impart to my students what I have learned from him, both through his books as well as my personal interactions with him. Today, it gives me immense happiness to see Professor Kotler in Bangalore after years of communication with him. Dr. Philip Kotler is the S.C. Johnson Distinguished Professor of International Marketing at the Kellogg School of Management. He has been honored as one of the world's leading marketing thinkers. He has received his master's in economics from the University of Chicago and his PhD degree in economics from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and has received honorary degrees from 12 foreign universities. Professor Kotler is an author of over 50 books and over 150 articles in leading professional journals. He has been a consultant to IBM, General Electric, Sony, AT&T, Bank of America, Merrick, Motorola, Ford, and to name a few. The Financial Times included Professor Kotler in its list of top 10 business thinkers and cited his famous book titled The Marketing Management and one of the 50 best business books of all times. A few of Professor Kotler's best-selling books are Principles of Marketing Management, Marketing 3.0, From Product to Customers to Human Spirit, and the Marketing Management South Asian Perspective, to name a few. Professor Kotler has been ranked the fourth most influential business writers and management guru in a survey of 1,000 executives from 25 countries by the Financial Times. Subsequently, he was also ranked as the sixth most influential business thinker. Now, it gives me immense pleasure to hand over the dice to Professor Philip Kotler. Please welcome the father of modern marketing with a standing ovation.
Ladies and gentlemen, anything auspicious in India begins with the auspicious lighting of lamp. May I please request Dr. Philip Kotler and Priyanka to please proceed towards lighting of the lamp. Requesting all of you to please rise while the lamp is being lit. You may all now please take your seats. Thank you. talk endlessly about Dr. Kotler, but I'm sure this is not something which you guys have come here for. Now we'll let the man talk to all of you guys. And here is Dr. Kotler for all of you. Can you give a huge round of applause for the gentleman?
Thank you very much for this great welcome. You're really spoiling me, because then I'll go to another venue and they won't talk about me, and then I'll say, what's the real world? Is this the real world, or that other one where they don't say anything? But in any case, I've been a friend and a lover of India for so many years, and maybe you don't know that I was in India before most of you were born. Now, I'm not talking about a previous life. That's a different theory. But I brought my wife here in 1956. So if you were born after 1956, you missed me. And it was our honeymoon. Most people in the United States, they choose their honeymoon to go to Hawaii or something like that. But we chose India, and partly because she was also taking a course at Harvard on India, and we were just fascinated with your civilization and cultural gifts. The next thing is we started to do yoga and meditation, so naturally that is also very inspiring about your culture. And we spent 9 months here in India, 3 in Calcutta, 3 in Delhi, and 3 in Bombay, or Mumbai now. And I had a Ford Foundation grant to do a study that was not a marketing study at the time. It was more about minimum wages and whether raising the minimum wage would help the workers be healthier, they'd have more money, they would work harder, it would benefit the company as well as themselves. So it was a study, and it was very interesting to be here during that period. It was also a troubled period because the riots broke out around 56, 57 too. But since that wonderful initial experience, I've come back to India many times, and I had spent most of my time in the north of India, and now I'm also learning a lot about the south. And I guess the north and the south are 2 different parts of India that have each developed jokes about the other part. But, so I watch very much, and I want you to be you are undoubtedly very proud of your new Prime Minister. Mr. Modi is just going over. Two of my very dear friends have met with him, who are marketing people. One of them is Professor Jagdish Sheth from Emory University. He was very proud to show me a photo of him with Prime Minister Modi. And also my own colleague from Kellogg, Bala Balachandran, who runs, by the way, and actually created the school in Chennai called the Great Lakes School. And he met Prime Minister Modi. And I suggested to both of them, wouldn't it be interesting if a group was formed of 5 to 10 top marketers to help carry out part of the reforms and the wonderful ideas that marketers could come up with to help during Prime Minister Modi's management and improvement of the economy. Because there's many things that we could try to answer about India. Remember, there's a thing in marketing called country of origin, which is the impression people have of another country. If I told you that you're about to buy a television set and it was made in Japan, you wouldn't think twice about it and say, well, Sony or someone made the set, it's got to be good. If I said that about even a refrigerator, so the question is, will it come about where, if I said that television set was made in India, and it's in the US now for sale, would that carry the confidence and the refrigerator, and so on and so forth. Now, it's interesting that some countries have come along later that did not have any reputation for quality, and now they are winning in the competitive battles. And I'm thinking of South Korea, because in South Korea, there were several weak companies, not very strong. One was called Samsung, one was called LG, the car company Hyundai and Kia. Very weak companies. All of a sudden, we're all buying their products. The country, the image of the country of origin has improved so much. Now, no country is going to be known as the best producer of every kind of product around. So India has to decide what product classes they want to master, so that when it says made in India, people want the Indian version of it. And that takes time. And the South Korean example shows it can be done. I mean, to come from nowhere and suddenly be the preferred TV set, Samsung. So, what are your industries that you should develop from a global perspective? And the question is, you don't have many global brands. Why not? And the reason is that you have such a big market, you don't have to make global brands. When you have a brand here, it has a very, very big popularity in a big market. If you were a small country like Sweden or Switzerland, where you have very few people, 7 million, 8 million people, you have to sell abroad. And that's why those small countries have been cleverer at creating strong brands than you have been. You and China don't have strong brands. China is coming up now with Haier as one, and maybe Alibaba. But generally speaking, countries with huge markets don't have to worry about globalizing their brands. But I think it's important to do that. Very important to do that. And ask what categories you can conquer and be the preferred brand in that area. Now, I really want to talk more about one aspect of great marketing, which one aspect is branding, a very strong concept, and another is innovation. And a book was written recently about reverse innovation by Professor Godin Rajakantan, excuse my pronunciation. He's a very important University of Michigan professor. And here's the thing. He says that the West has been known as the place of innovation up to now. Innovations have come out of the West. But he says, as they come to the East, or this part of the world, and they try to sell the way the product and the way it was made in the West, often it's not perfect for this area. It has to be really modified. And in fact, that more and more innovation will come from the East than the West, possibly. And even our companies like General Electric, take General Electric's medical equipment, expensive, heavy, large equipment. GE finds it hard, it may be hard to sell some of their things here, and now are on a cruise to figure out how to modify for your hospitals, for your rural clinics, how to change very much the medical devices and equipment so it's adapted to the price level and the income level of your hospitals and so on. And so his book, Reverse Innovation, captures the spirit that so much that will be new will come from here. You're going to be the inventors of, for example, I remember when computers used to sell for $500 or $1,000 each, and the cry here was, we need a $100 computer. We have to figure, so to some extent, India's gift might be the ability to scale costs down by imaginative redesign and so on. I had a breakfast this morning with the hotel where we're staying. It's a fantastic hotel called ITC, luxury hotel. And we were just talking about how come there isn't an Indian fast food chain in the West. Chinese have a place called Panda Express, and very good. You just go in, inexpensive, good food and so on. Why hasn't anyone brought India into the West in the fast food form? So we're giving you the idea because maybe some of you are going to leave next minute now and be the first to create a whole chain concept. And you have certain, now we have in Chicago, which is my city, a very famous avenue called Devon Avenue. So if you've ever been to Chicago, you'll see that's India. We have India in Chicago. And that's where so many restaurants, Chinese restaurants and so on. But I was talking about a fast food thing that you're very entrepreneurial. This is a gift of yours. If people are able to come up with new ideas, the problem with your society is there's so many permissions you need as you start a business. It's so slow. Some people tell me maybe it will take a year from the starting of an application to start a business to get the approval and so on. Well, Modi is going to do the best to cut that down. I mean, there's no reason why someone can't start a business within a week or two and so on. So streamlining a lot of your economy is going to be important. Okay, let's now, we'll take a lot of questions from you during the day. And it will be a period when I and my two co-authors are going to be on the stage, and we're going to learn from you what's on your mind, and our next edition will be probably taking your answers into our book. The first is called Lateral Marketing, New Techniques for Finding Breakthrough Ideas. So it's really not about how a company should run itself to be innovative. In other words, that is not a book you'd go to become a 3M company or a Apple company. It's not about how does a company become known for innovativeness. That's the second book, Winning at Innovation. But the first book is how do you find a new out-of-the-box idea, something, what's the chemistry of coming up with some bright new idea? And so some of the things I'll be saying will be from that book, and then some will be from the Winning at Innovation book. So let's start with some good thought on the whole subject of innovation. Here's the most discouraging statement. Most innovations fail, and companies that don't innovate die. Isn't that depressing? So if you decide not to innovate, you're going to die. And if you decide to innovate, you're going to die. Very helpful, isn't it? Well, let's take a real statistic. Someone told me recently that in a certain area of food and innovations, new foods and so on, the failure rate has been 92%. These are new food dishes and so on. So if you're in the food business and you're about to launch an innovation, what are the odds that you're facing? If 9 out of 10, or 90% out of 100 are going to fail, the first thing that suggests is you shouldn't have been innovating anything. Don't innovate, you're going to fail. Is there an alternative? There's an alternative that is lost in this statement. Maybe it's better to be a fast follower than an innovator. In other words, watch others waste their money on innovation until that one that is successful shows up and you jump in fast and you ride. And if your company's even bigger, you buy the other company or you just copy. So for each industry, what's the rate of failure? is an important question as to whether you should be an innovator or a fast follower. Now, a second statement comes from the real guru that I knew, management guru, and that's Peter Drucker. And I call him the grandfather of marketing. I've been called the father of modern marketing, but he's the grandfather. I had the pleasure of knowing him and being on the board with him. And he made so many statements about the role of marketing before it was popular to think about it. One, before I mention this one, he said when he talked to CEOs who asked him, what is marketing? He says, I'll tell you, the aim of marketing is to make selling unnecessary. Wait, isn't marketing selling? So that's a contradiction. What do you mean by that? He says, well, when you're really a great marketer, you get a bright idea of a need that isn't being met, and you are the first to meet the need, and people line up. You don't need salesmen. It's like the car company that comes out with a brand new car everyone has to have. Today, a similar one is people who have the iPhone know that there's a new iPhone now that's bigger screen, some new features. We line up for it. I'm waiting 2 months for mine. And you're not going to even get it in India for a while. That's good marketing. It's good marketing produces a line of customers waiting to buy it. No salesman. That's what he meant. That selling and marketing are different. Marketing is the brains that are smart enough to find something that is going to just go over so well. But the statement that he also made, a business has two and only two basic functions, marketing and innovation. Marketing and innovation produce results. All the rest are costs. Guess what the opinion of Peter Drucker was by people who were in manufacturing, finance, and all the other functions. They hated that statement. It makes them subservient. A business is not about finance. A business is not about manufacturing. It's about creating customers and creating things they want. And so we think he's very wise to put these two functions as important. By the way, you need both. You could be a company run by engineers and very brilliant at creating something, like the Philips company is such a good example. Philips is the Dutch company that makes razors and all kinds of new products. Problem with Philips is they are great at innovation and poor at marketing. It's not enough to be great in one only. And there's a story attached to this. And it's the story of one of your great people, C.K. Prahalad. C.K. Prahalad, who wrote the great book, The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid, to help us lift people out of poverty. He was also known as a very great marketing consultant. In the Philips company, which was so great at innovations that failed all the time, was asked to come in and fix up their marketing, because the two are needed, not just one. And they asked him how much he will need to be paid as a consultant to fix up their marketing. And he had such pride in what he could do, he said, I don't want money, I want stock. Just give me stock in your company. You know what that means for a consultant? He's so confident that what he's going to do for them is going to raise the price of their stock, their profits first, and then he'll get back more than if he got cash. By the way, I advise consultants who really believe they can make a difference to ask for stock. But in any case, he helped them see that they were strong in innovation and weak in marketing. They made the mistake that engineers make of trying to make something perfect, often very expensive, often ahead of the time, often something we're not ready for. and someone comes along afterwards to make it better, simpler. What's an example of that? Motorola. Do you know what the first cell phone looked like? Because the Motorola company was making the first cell phone. It was a brick. You got this big thing that wouldn't work in an office. You had to take it outside where the sun was visible, because it was satellite oriented, and hope that you can get a call placed to one other sucker who bought such a thing. Because you needed two people to have that brick. And by the way, they launched so many satellites to make it work, 60 to 80 satellites and so on. It was a disaster. So it's that kind of problem. I'm not against engineers. I wish I was an engineer. To me, engineering is a liberal education. It's a really wonderful mind developer, just like some people say law is a liberal education, understanding the law profession. But engineering I love, but many engineers look for, we call them masters of the possible, but they're not masters of the valuable. To be a master of the possible is to be an engineer who can make any kind of bridge, anything you want. Doesn't mean it's going to go and sell. And you need to always have a master of the valuable who can measure the value that will be perceived in that offering for the two to work together. So when Drucker says marketing, the two functions are marketing and innovation, it's a way of saying you need a master of the valuable and a master of the possible working together. By the way, I can go into a company and see if they talk to each other. It would be bad if the engineers are developing something, they're passionate and crazy about this new thing, and never talk to marketers who can tell them if there's going to be any interest in it at that price. So that's the pithy observation that Drucker was basically making. I knew Mr. William Davidow. He was this vice president for Intel for strategy. And he made an interesting point. He said, while great devices are invented in the laboratory, great products are invented in the marketing department. Now, a laboratory can make any product, of course. What's the meaning of the product? What's the value of it? Who puts in the meaning? And let me give you an illustration. This can be made in the laboratory, right? If I took this to a primitive tribe, it would have no meaning. They'll probably play catch with it. And the fact is, we failed to tell them what this is. We failed someone, the marketing people, to put meaning into this. But I'm going to give you a different illustration that makes the same point. General Motors, in the past, would make another car. In one of its divisions, it had Oldsmobile, Buick, Pontiac, a lot of divisions, and in each division there would be several cars. And they would make the car and then ask the marketing people to sell it before asking them to participate while it was being made. So the marketing people would immediately say, well, who's it for? They never thought about that question. It's a car. Because they were just into styling different cars. And so they were losing really because they didn't realize that every product must start with a concept. You don't make a product, you test a concept. And there's ways to find out if people will be interested in that concept. If I say they're designing a car for women who have high income, all right, then you have some leads on what to make. And meaning is built in from the beginning. So it would be a mistake if you're a company that makes a product and then asks the marketing department, what should it mean to people and how to sell it? That's backward. In fact, the Japanese, when they make a product,
not only have they made it for a group, they know who the target market would be, but they even think through the price at which it should sell for that customer group that the customer group can afford, and then they engineer the cost to fit the price at which it should sell. In other words, that's very different from General Motors in the past. General Motors would put the price on the car after it saw what its costs were. If it was inefficiently made and the costs are high, so they mark it up. The Japanese did it better. They said, that's a car that should have value to these types of people who will pay $7,000 for the car, let's say. So how can we make it for $5,000, which will leave us a $2,000 margin? The Japanese are very interesting in that respect. We shouldn't forget that that country created so many concepts in business because they've been in the doldrums for 20 years. They've had economic stagnation. They've had what is called deflation. Inflation is bad enough. Deflation can be just as bad. Deflation is when prices are sort of falling, slowly but falling, and no one wants to buy because the prices will be lower later. You see the dilemma? If there's a falling price trend, why buy now the car? The car will be cheaper next year. So spending in a deflation period is slowed down paradoxically. But the Japanese, under Mr. Abe, and they now call it Abenomics, it was just announced today in the news that he's going to call for a referendum on his being the prime minister. Now, he wants it done now while he still has 50% popularity, so he can get and to do the real things that have to be done to fight deflation. But the Japanese have invented a lot of concepts. What about the concept of quality? Six Sigma. Six Sigma. Do you know what that means? If you're buying this and it has Six Sigma quality, what percent might be defective? 1 in a million? I forget the numbers. I used to know the numbers. You see, good. You guys are ahead of us on that idea. Of you even know the percentage. And the point is that Six Sigma was adopted by a lot of other outside of Japan, then Motorola adopted it. Then they had this great person from America who America rejected, who taught them quality control. He taught the Japanese quality. Japanese products, by the way, were not respected before the war. The Japanese products came into the U.S. as inferior kinds of things that fall apart. So after World War II, they really got to work on these things. Lean production, just in time. The concept of why make a lot of products and keep them in storage before the demand buys them? Why not just make them at a rate that they're being bought so there's no stock that you have to tie your money up in? Just in time. And many other concepts that are part of our thinking now in management. So these are some thoughts that are going on. Now, let's see if I can get to the next slide. And there we go. So let's talk about other things about innovation. It's unnatural to be innovative. This is the first thing that hits you. It's more comfortable to keep doing the same thing in your company day after day. Not changing. If you change things, people have to adjust and jobs may have to be cut for some people and new people added. We don't like innovation in a sense. It's not as natural as just doing what you're doing. Yes, you would be happy to improve efficiency, but innovation is really to make something different. Most companies expect ideas and initiatives to come either naturally or through creativity training or setting up skunk works. And yet, I have gone into companies where they would tell me about a certain person in a company who was always coming up with new ideas. I gave a name to that person. That's an activator. Because I created a system of A, B, C, D, E, F for the roles that should take place in a company so that it will be an innovative company. And one role is to have some people who are you know these people. The office opens up and this person, man or woman, is going around saying, I just saw an article. I think we could do something with that. I read something in the newspaper. Hey, isn't that interesting? They're an activator. They stimulate the pot. They just, and next day it's a different idea. So I'm saying that every company should try to find those people who have a kind of a creative mindset, and they learn things and they want to use them. So ideas can come from everywhere. You could be more, we'll talk about the 5 or 6 major groups that can give ideas that you might work on. Some companies give rewards for finding ways to improve efficiency and maybe to develop new ideas. And that's important for a company to honor its innovators and those who improve things. I want to make a distinction, by the way, between a company that is looking for a big new idea all the time and a company that is improving its product all the time, improving its efficiency. A big difference. I remember that the Kraft company, which makes cheese and has potato chips of different kinds and spaghetti, and the Kraft company was taken over by a new leader. Her name, it's a woman, it's Irene Rosenfeld, and she became the CEO. And she is running a business in the food industry, and she's saying to her staff, we need $1 billion idea. If we can get $1 billion, because she knows how much she wants, and the stockholders want growth, how much growth they want in Kraft as a company. And so she's thinking, wouldn't one big $1 billion idea make it for us? By the way, that's the thinking the pharmaceutical firms do. A pharmaceutical firm isn't going to work on any idea that isn't $1 billion idea, because the cost of finding the solution will be $1 billion. So she said to her firm, let's divide into groups, work on different ideas and to find the $1 billion idea. The fact is they didn't find one. Maybe it would have been better to have some groups around finding ideas in the $250,000 class or $250 million class. You know what I mean? Maybe she was aiming too high. So the Japanese are a little different in that respect. They don't come up with big ideas, except the Walkman at Sony and a few others. They're into what is improving everything all the time. The Japanese mentality is the worker is always thinking as he's making something, he's doing what he was trained to do, can I do it better? Can I improve this? And you say to him, you don't want to really succeed. You're going to put yourself out of a job. If you're saying your work is not necessary or it could be done by a machine, you're crazy to tell that to the boss. Why did it work? Lifetime employment. The Japanese that person will be rewarded for killing his job, which was not as necessary, and put in a place where he again will think about improving something. So he's not going to be fired. Most of us just stay quiet about our work. We just do it. So the point is, the Japanese mantra is improving everything all the time. So it's not big breakthroughs. They don't have it. Too bad, because they haven't had any big breakthroughs. They're interested in just making things work better all the time. Okay. And there are companies that are brilliant at innovation. And maybe I should have on this list some Indian companies. You've got to tell me who you think is a company here that is quite innovative. Maybe we'll talk about that question when we're on the stage later about, is innovation really going on, and are there some companies that are strong? Now, I'm going to name a few. Harley Davidson makes motorcycles, and they are the leader in my country, and they keep making the motorcycle better. They just came out with one of the first electric motorcycles. Now, a motorcycle should be gas, it should be powerful, it should make a lot of noise. I mean, that's why you buy it, right? To go through the streets and just let everyone know you're coming through. So they just made an electric one. The problem with an electric one is it doesn't make any noise. So what's the answer? You put in a noise machine, too. So this new one can make as much noise as you want. But they're innovative. And by the way, they're innovative because they work with co-creators, customers who want to work with them. That is to say, they say there's always a set of our customers who love us so much that they want to work alongside with the engineer with giving us some new ideas. I'm calling that co-creation. I say too many companies have some enthusiastic customers and they never use them. Why not bring, because here's the motto for most companies. Our company will create something and then test it on consumers. If it tests well, we'll make it and sell it. But never asking consumers for their ideas. All the good ideas will come inside the company and then we'll test them. So the new idea is get some ideas from your customers who know how to make things better. I'll give you an example. Medical surgery, the surgical tools that a surgeon uses. So there was a surgeon who was doing an operation, and in the middle of it, the scalpel slips from him, goes on the floor. Now that's not a good thing because there might be, germs and so on. I mean, but there was no time to do anything but pick it up and continue with the surgery. But why did it slip? And he went on a crusade with the surgical companies, and he says, you got to have a rubber part to the handle, because we're busy with liquid, and we're going to lose some of the tools. So he became a consultant on the designing of tools for surgeons. So draw in customers that you might have who can improve you and your product. And Harley Davidson does that. Another company, BMW, is always trying out new things. I have to laugh about BMW. What's their motto? How do they differ from Mercedes? What do they own as an idea? Isn't it the ultimate driving machine? The idea that the driver will get the greatest satisfaction in this car, turning corners and all that. And ironically, I'm worrying for them because we're going to be making driverless cars soon. So their whole mantra doesn't make sense. If their mantra is about you driving a car, and if more cars are ones you just sit in and read a book, they need a new mantra. That's not going to happen soon, so they're not worried about it. Another company that is very creative is Lego, the Danish company that makes those toys for kids, those bricks and so on. And kids from all over Denmark want to go to the company and work there, be hired. But I can't hire this kid. He's 11 years old. It's against the rule that you can hire someone at 11. That's child labor. But the kid wants to work. He wants to create new things for Lego. So they have an arrangement where he hangs around with the engineers. So, and other companies that have a kind of a creative side to them. And the book is referenced there. That's quite good to read. This scholar, Govinda Rajan, and his Chris Trimble, The Other Side of Innovation, Solving the Execution Challenge. One of the things about Vijay is he writes in his other book that he spent 2 years at General Electric as a consultant in the health area and the energy area. And boy, did he learn so much about innovation. And he was watching how GE was now doing reverse innovation, bringing ideas to India and making cheaper or more efficient versions of their big equipment and devices. So, okay. Now, let's move on. And what I want to say is this. Let me go back one, if I can go back. I don't, usually you aim somewhere here. Okay. This is the pyramid idea that we sometimes share, which is that you want, if you're a big company, if you're a multinational, you're probably have some new products that are being developed. Actually, my vision is that if I was the chief officer of General Electric, I would like a dashboard, and by each row would be some product or project under development, and I can look as the CEO, where do we stand with this thing we're doing with airline engines, a new project to make their jet engines better. Let's see, we were supposed to, it would be a line and would show that we're halfway through the development of the new project. But we may also take another project at GE and it's not going anywhere. We're wasting our money. So I want a dashboard where I can view the milestones. Where are we? Have we reached, you have to set up milestones of steps that will be accomplished along the way to creating a successful project. And there are some companies that are very busy with lots of projects. That's what we're talking about. Now, maybe all of the projects are minor ones. So that would be many incremental quick wins and continuous improvements. The Japanese do that more. A lot of incremental improvement. How about having something that might be some new ventures? They're not going to be big ideas, but they are a little off the beaten path. And then maybe a few big strategic bets. Not one that will burn down the whole industry if it failed. Never, never go after a big project and put all your money into it when you don't know it's going to be successful. So you don't want to burn down the house, but there should be some big ideas. By the way, to encourage the biggest thinking, we have a group called there's a prize called the X Prize. Do you know about the X Prize? The X Prize tries to collect ideas of big breakthroughs that someone can work on, and if they succeed, they'll get $1 million or $2 million as prize money for having succeeded. One example, design a car so that it can go 100 miles on 1 gallon of gas. 100 miles on 1 gallon of gas, and then there's space projects too, Space projects there's a fellow who everyone admires, is his name Elon Musk? You know about Musk? He has one of the great new cars, something called a Tesla car, and he also got a space thing, like Richard Branson has. So I like the X Prize because it gives you a list of prizes that are available if some team from your Indian school of the technology schools, your wonderful technology schools, some students can work on these prizes. Now, most companies don't make a big bet. They don't have an idea for a big bet, but that's something to think about. You could read the Harvard professor Rosabeth Cantor if you want to see more on that idea that an innovative company would have a portfolio. Now we'll move to the next thing, and okay. Now, change is occurring very fast, and we have some episodes that we have to ask why. Why did these happen? Why did Kodak die? Kodak was killed by its success, which is very frequently the answer. They were making so much money with film that even though they had known about the digital camera and did some work on it, they didn't push it very far, not the way others pushed it. And it was too late when their whole enterprise collapsed because no one was. When did you go and buy your film last? I know you have a camera for that kind of film, but you might as well sell it or throw it away because. And maybe one of the reasons they didn't wake up is when the digital cameras first came out, consider the number of pixels. No, everyone said it won't produce a picture as good as the old cameras. But I was saying, and others were saying, it will get better and better and even better than the camera pictures. And so that's happening. So maybe they slowed down because they thought that people wouldn't be satisfied with the digital pictures at the state of the art. In any case, there was more to the Kodak case. Kodak is a company of chemists. What do you do with those chemists when you go digital? You don't need chemists. You need engineers. And George Fisher was hired away from Motorola as the most promising Motorola future executive to come to Kodak and save the company and to replace the chemists so they can really get further with digital. He tried and he tried, but he didn't have the heart to get rid of a lot of people whose services were not necessary. And so it didn't really work in Kodak. And if you ever had been at Kodak, Kodak is in a city called Rochester, New York. It's half the city. It's almost like barricaded. It has its own fire department. It has its own educational facilities. And it's very sad that a city like Rochester loses half of its industry. Nokia was, again, a victim of its success, too. I mean, Nokia was all around the world as the right phone to have, followed by BlackBerry, which also took over success and is still successful in the U.S., in the government area. I mean, Obama has a BlackBerry. BlackBerry is apparently more secure than other cell phones, and that's why he and his group, they use a BlackBerry. But that's now we're being hit by the iPhone and the Android phones and some others. Barnes & Noble was a wonderful innovation of a bookstore doesn't have to be a small store where you stand up wishing you could sit down and read a book. Barnes & Noble was the place where you could see thousands of books and have coffee and have your friends and hear from authors. And they're now a corpse. Why? What killed Barnes & Noble? Amazon. I mean, and the e-reader. The fact that the book doesn't have to be a book anymore and it could be downloaded. I can, in 1 minute, get any of the books I just mentioned on my e-reader, on my iPhone. So things change is the rule of the day. That's the point of this. It's occurring fast and it's disrupting. It's disrupting. Now, Walmart is now one of the largest companies in the world, and it's worried about a competitor. Who do you think they're worried about? The two of them, probably. No, actually Amazon. Not Apple. Apple just makes electronic products. Amazon sells everything. You know, why would you go to Walmart? Maybe you want some jeans. Maybe you want some food. Well, food is another category. Maybe you want some devices or electronics. Amazon will ship to you any of those things, and Walmart is worried. Will maybe they should also sell everything, not only in their big stores, but also online. So Walmart is preparing an online presence so you don't have to go to Walmart. They'll ship it. So this is all a story about disruption. And the one who has given us the best ideas about disruption is Clay Christensen from Harvard. Harvard has two professors that are very notable. One is Michael Porter for strategy, and Clay Christensen is wonderful with his books on disruptive technology, disruptive innovation. Now, what I'm saying is, each of you who works in a company, your company can be disrupted by digital and other things happening. So I want you to go back to your company and get your company to put its heads together on this question: how might your company be disrupted and replaced by something else? What are your possible weaknesses, and what are people doing, young people doing in garages today, making something that might replace your company? Now, after you get your list of possible ways in which something will put you out of business, and not just another competitor just like you, but a new technology, you should then do three things: vulnerability analysis, measure the size of that disruption, the probability of that disruption. There's a thing we call vulnerability analysis. Every company is vulnerable, and every company should think about sources of disruption. Then secondly, you should do scenario planning. Scenario planning is, no one knows the future, so why don't you invent three futures in your mind? If you're in the automobile business, one is a future where the cars will become more driverless. Another is a different picture about maybe cars all becoming smaller in size because there's not enough room for so many cars. You know that with your congestion and so on. But scenario planning is, well, what could we do about the threat to our company, and what bet can we place on three different scenarios that might actually be the nature of our industry 3 to 5 years from now? Things like that are worth looking at, and so on. Okay, let's move forward. I might suggest, if someone is at the desk where they control things, if I seem to have a problem pressing, you also are able to change the slide. Okay? Maybe it's a battery thing. Okay, innovation is not a choice. Companies used to depend on their R&D lab for innovation. That's clear, isn't it? Now they can do three things. They can go outside firms for help. For example, so many American companies come to India. They go to Infosys or Wipro, set up our database system. Our company needs a mature, comprehensive database system listing all of our customers and so on and so forth. So you're very good. You know, whereas China is positioned as the factory of the world, you are positioned as the source of IT for the world. You have already leadership in IT and software. So that's one thing. Or they can acquire innovative firms. Microsoft recently bought a number of firms to get them into another area, because computer software is not growing very much. It isn't a hot thing, and they are trying to get in. I think they're going into gaming and some other things. Or you could ask your loyal customers and crowdsource them for new ideas. And Intel has done something like that, to ask those people who know chips and buy chips for ideas on the next chips that need to be developed. So there's different ways to go ahead. By the way, another thing is maybe you can change it. Good. Most companies come up with small product improvements, not breakthroughs, and I believe that companies need to build a innovation mindset. So let's take a company and see what happens when a company says, we're just not innovative enough. So let's go to the next slide, Whirlpool. Can you good, thank you. In the 1990s, now do you know Whirlpool as a company? They make washing machines and dryers. One of the leaders in the world, but so are other companies making those things. So that's a business which is pretty stalemated. You know, it's like there are so many good washing machines and dryers. How do you differentiate? So the CEO of this firm in the 1990s, they called this industry white goods, because white was the color of most of our washing machines and dryers and so on. He says, we must get innovative, not just from R&D, but getting ideas from everywhere. So he said, no, go back to the previous slide. Yes. For every, he said, let's do the first thing is an interesting step. He said, I think we need creativity training. I think not all of my people need it. I mean, why give it to the accountants? We don't want them to become creative accountants, which would mean that the books won't be honest or something. But he chose 400 people or so to develop, to be trained in creativity. Now, what does it mean to be trained to think creatively? Well, one simple thing to do, you can read Edward de Bono's books. Edward de Bono is the guy who goes around, like I go around with marketing, he goes around with creativity, and he's wonderful to listen to. If you ever have a chance to hear Edward de Bono. He has a lot of books. He talks about the 6 hats, six different mindsets, and actually he used the term lateral thinking. So when I wrote my book that I called Lateral Marketing, I was sort of riding a little bit on what he means by lateral thinking. Lateral is different than vertical. Let me give you that idea. If you think vertically, a good illustration would be the Kellogg company that makes cereal, Kellogg cereal, because they think vertically. What does it mean? I need a new cereal, and by definition, it's going to go into a box, and I'm going to put maybe more raisins, some walnuts, and some wheat or barley. So it's easy to keep creating new cereals, vertically speaking. They don't think laterally. Laterally would raise this question, what else could I do with cereal than put it in a box? I'm good at making cereal, but what else can I do? And the answer finally came up in an interesting way. It was noticed that some men going to work would take one of those little plastic bags that you have in the kitchen for storage something, and they would take some good crunchy cereal, put it in the bag, and then they would put the bag in their pocket, and when they're hungry, they would snack on cereal. But that wasn't a product yet. It was just an innovative behavior on the part of some customers. And that got one guy at Kellogg to say, maybe what he really wants is not to play around with some snacking. He wants a candy bar made of cereal. As a matter of fact, cereal is better than maybe something else. You could almost call it a health bar. And so the fact is that Kellogg is in the candy bar market, basically. And now the latest thing is, a lot of people eat yogurt. So the question is, could cereal be added to yogurt? Yes, you could either have it as part of the yogurt, it's already inside, but the idea became the yogurt will have a cap and there's cereal on top of the yogurt, and so when you have your yogurt, you could take the cereal and then mix it in. So that's lateral. What the expression we use is thinking out of the box. And it's literally that what we asked Kellogg to do. Think out of the box. Don't think of cereal in a box. But thinking out of the box is the broadest way of saying think freshly about what you might do. So he took several of his people and gave them creativity training. That didn't mean that the Bono came along, but there are, you could create your own firm that teaches creativity. If there was a big market for creativity in India, some firm should be the one we go to for the training in creativity thinking. And how many different methods of training are there? Well, one book I have at home is called 100 Methods of Creativity. The ones we know about are brainstorming. Some of you may know about synectics. Some of you may know about morphological analysis or attribute listing. There's lots of trainings that could loosen your mind and stimulate you to think of new ideas. Okay, so for every time they would get an innovation idea, that some, maybe what we call this A person who is always coming up with new ideas, they would then create a team around a good sounding idea who would take a month off and maybe 3 months to develop the idea further and to quit if it isn't really working. So now here's a company that taught creativity to its people, and then for each idea that is really exciting, they form teams to go into the field and investigate it further. Now let's go to the next slide. You can leave the whole slide on. Whoop, too many. One at a time. Go right back. Okay, now this is the second slide. To obtain new technology needed for new businesses, Whirlpool implemented an open innovation strategy. Now, here's what that means, open innovation. In the past, all companies were quiet and secretive about anything they're innovating. Why should the competition know about it? Today, they're a little more open. And Procter & Gamble's probably designed the answer. They call it connect and develop. Procter & Gamble has probably 5,000 technical people at that company and 75,000 technical people not working at P&G. See the difference? They only relied in the past on 5,000 well-trained chemists and others to make laundry products and the toothpaste and so on. Now they've connected with so many specialists around the world, they could draw on anything. And I'll give you a good illustration. Do you know the brand called Pringles? It's a can and potato chips. And these are artificial potato chips, but at least you have it in a can, a tennis can, basically. And then you can just eat as much as you want, close the can, have some more later. And one of their people got the idea, wouldn't kids like to see a word on each potato chip? The word cat or dog or some funny words or something. The problem was, how do you write on a potato chip? And if you're writing a word, isn't that some ink or something that the kid shouldn't be digesting? They had no way to know how to write, so they found out in Italy there was a guy who made cookies, and he was writing on the cookies. So they went to him, and of course he became the guy they used to start writing on potato chips. And that kind of thing of having a larger set of connections of people who have skills also is of interest to Whirlpool. Whirlpool is also into open innovation strategy. And they have set up innovation managers on different continents. So you would do the same if you have a Whirlpool-like company. You might find for developing products for the United States, put in the city of New York or in California somewhere an innovation manager who adapts your products to that country. Whirlpool involves its customers, employees, its trading partners, its suppliers in thinking innovatively. So they have this concept that Whirlpool is a team of that works well together and helps each other. They collaborate a lot. And ideas can come from anywhere. Whirlpool developed new offerings. So here's the bottom line. They are now inventing things as a company that has nothing to do with washing machines and dryers. They became so creative that they have launched a lot of new successful businesses. And I'll give you one example. They noticed, one of the people noticed that you know what a garage is. If you have a lot of space, you have a car, you're either parking your car outside your home or in a garage. And one person from Whirlpool noticed that garages are very messy. You put your shovels there, your brooms, everything you would be ashamed to put in your home, you put in the garage. And many men often work in their garage to hammer things, fix things, to make wooden objects, and so on. And in the garage, there's usually the old refrigerator, the one you didn't throw away. So you bought a new one and you kept the other one there. And it's good because the guy who runs the father, he has to drink some Coke. So he has a refrigerator. And that led this Whirlpool guy to say, I think there would be a business in selling a service that would make the garage another room in the house. One you'd be proud of, with shelves, with things organized, with a good refrigerator. And they have a whole business now. It's called Gladiator Garage Works. And it started with the idea of spotting an old refrigerator in a garage, but now is a whole business of making it the third room in the house, the fourth or fifth room in the home, a comfortable place. So I know I talked a lot about one company, but you see how you might proceed to get some creativity training and have teams ready to follow up on certain ideas. And if they work, you're in another business.